Good evening. My name is Joe Bandel, and I am the last Rosicrucian. Tonight we're going to talk about Oak Advantage number 9, rewards from life. Nearly everyone desires a full and happy life, but few people achieve it. That's pretty obvious. And by nature, neo-cheaters who promote altruistic self-sacrifice can never achieve such a life. And we will be, in later advantages, we'll be clarifying what it's about neo-cheaters, but essentially they're value destroyers as opposed to value creators. They find ways of self-empowerment through destroying the work of others. For example, it's easier to gain empowerment by criticizing the work of somebody than by creatively coming up with something on your own. That's just an example. Remember, there's one basic here that is kind of core to everything. We were born into this life for a purpose. And when we find that purpose and when we act upon that purpose, we get prosperity and happiness. Our loved ones, it benefits us, it benefits our loved ones, it benefits our family, it benefits our community, it benefits our country, and it benefits the entire world. But things are so messed up in our world that there are forces out there, we call them neo-cheaters, that are trying their damnedest to prevent you from listening to the still small voice of conscience in your heart, from following that inner guidance, and they are actively promoting higher goals, altruistic ideas, things that are they say are more important than self, more important than. And if we're real about this, I'm going to mention back in the 70s there was a human empowerment person named Dick Sutphin. He was highly influential to me. And one of the things that he mentioned, if I can remember right from memory, is that during your day, you have so many hours that you're sleeping, you have so many hours that you're obligated to work, so many hours that you're obligated to family and whatever, because we do have responsibilities. But he said, there's a small portion of your day that may be as big as, might be as large as 2 hours. It might only be 2 hours, it might be less than 2 hours. But let's call it 2 hours. That is free time for you. And he maintained that if during those 2 hours of free time that you have, if you devote those 2 hours to your life's goal, to your life's purpose, you will ultimately get there. And I remember that. And that's because realistically, we're stuck. How many people do you know that are living the kind of dream life, the American dream or whatever? How many are caught in soul-sucking jobs because of consequences of past actions? So it's easier said than done. but there's hope. It all depends on how each one of us uses that small opportunity of whether it's only 20 minutes a day or whether it's 2 hours a day. Those grow, and you get places by that. So I think that that's one of the things you need to mention when we talk about uh, realistically trying to pursue your dream, is just that open recognition that, hey, I can't just kind of get up and forget about my family or forget about food and things like that. I have to spend so much time doing this. But the the trap is that neo-cheaters are deliberately creating things to pull you away from that little bit of free time that you have, so that you are caught up into passive entertainment rather than creative entertainment or something like that. So anyway, that's uh, that's one of the things. Now, the main reason for limitations and failures are lack of knowledge and awareness. And that is also another thing, is blind acceptance of external authority. We don't question. We're ordered to do something and we don't question it. When I was in the Air Force and I went through POW resistance training, they openly told us, they said, one of the problems with people in the United States is they will oblige. You tell them to do something and they'll go ahead and do it. You ask them where they're from or what their birthday is or something like that. And they'll just blab out everything because they're so happy that you asked, rather than saying, what do you want that information for? So I'm just saying that lack of knowledge and awareness and acceptance of external authority. Well, lack of knowledge and awareness, that is what these advantages are about. In these 114 Oak advantages, I am trying to share awareness with you so that you have the knowledge and awareness to recognize where, when, and how you are being manipulated and toyed with, so that you can make conscious decisions based on your own personal interests. There are many myths about prosperity and happiness promoted by neo-cheaters. They sound right and reasonable, and we take them as truth. For example, so I'm going to come out and say it. I'm going to say man-made climate change based on carbon dioxide emissions. We, by the basic law, the basic great masses of people, buy that hook and sinker, even though increasingly it's being debunked, and they're saying that climate change is more correctly the consequence of solar forcing, the effect of sunspots, solar weather. These things are, in other words, they say, do this, and we do it because they're the experts. Well, you know what? They're not really necessarily experts. the thing is, they're an external authority, and there's political influence at will there. You can have, I don't know how many doctors, for example, out there that are forced to comply to things for political reasons because of fear that they'll get their license pulled, their license to practice. Um, you just, and I'm not even going to go. I'm not even going to go down any of those places because there's no purpose to it. But uh, I'm just saying that there's a lot of things that are misleading and destructive that the average person takes as truth because they've been told that. For example, the works of Sigmund Freud, Herbert Marcuse, and Wilhelm Reich promote the myth that sex dominates human behavior. Their views promote the myth that all human life revolves around sex. If you remember basic psychology with Freudianisms and stuff like that, that it all revolved around sex. Well, the oak material, the stuff that not only these advantage but other things that I've written about, help to understand that it's not that simple. That there are actually just like 7 rings around and have 7 possible rings around an atom. We have 7 major chakra centers in the body, and each of those 7, just like 7 colors in the rainbow, or the 7 notes on a piano keyboard, each of those 7 chakra centers generates and creates 7 astral bodies or non-physical bodies, and each one of these is created out of a specific type of energy. For example, every noble gas has a complete electron ring, and within those electron rings, whichever one you choose, there's maybe 2 electrons, or there's maybe 8, or maybe 18, or maybe 32, depending on which one you're talking about. But each of those electrons represents a sensory input, because there is a correlation between the so-called astral worlds, the astral bodies, and the physical sciences, the elements. And it's these noble gases that ultimately form these permanent astral bodies, which is so-called non-physical, even though they do have that physical nature. But if you take these 7, helium being the highest, creates what we call the concrete spiritual body, the archetypal body. Neon, another noble gas, the abstract mental body, or the creative philosophical mental body. It's when you're creatively thinking. Argon, the concrete mental, which is where just the sense of self is, and the sense of our environment, being aware. Krypton creates the upper emotional body. Xenon is the lower emotional body. In other words, that's a non-physical body, but it consists of the lower, what we consider the lower emotions, like willpower, like anger, like I'll be damned if I'm going to let that stop me. determination. Radon is what the martial arts consider the creation of the immortal physical body. But in our ordinary life, this is the awareness that we have of our chemical physical body. In other words, you can have a physical body and an immortal physical body, or one can be developed into the other one according to the martial art traditions of building those things up. And the etheric body being that last outer possible electron shell, which is where you have what you call the ghost body, the glow in the dark phenomenon with spirits and things. But here's the thing. People that are familiar with astral projection, any one of these bodies can be developed to the point of being able to project in that body. But each astral body has its own awareness, its own intelligence, and its own sensory field. In other words, and it doesn't exist in the other one. What you have to do is you have to build communication lines between each different astral body. You have to build communication lines between each energy so that awareness can travel from your mental awareness down to the etheric level. If you want to function with mental awareness at the etheric level, you need to build bridges all the way through that so that communication can exist. This takes a long time. But the point I'm getting at here is each astral body or non-physical body has its own intelligence and awareness, and each has its own needs and instinctual drives for its own survival. Remember we were talking about Freud and how everything was about sex or something like that? Well, or everything's about this or physical survival or whatever. Well, each of these non-physical bodies or astral bodies has its own fundamental need. Survival is the etheric body's fundamental need. Self-esteem is the concrete mental body's fundamental need. Neither one of those is sex. Sex is the immortal physical body's fundamental need. The preservation of life so that procreation, the continuation of life itself. Whereas the etheric is the continuation, let me keep me alive. The immortal physical body is, we got to have generations to go on so that there's always going to be new. We can incarnate. There's always going to be life, bodies for life to continue, for our spirits to incarnate into, that kind of thing. That's the take that I have on these things. It's a little bit different than most, but it's really tied in with the science aspect of things, tied in with Dewey Larson's reciprocal systems theory, that we exist in 3 dimensions of space-time, and we call it the physical world, and At the same time, we exist in three dimensions of time-space, which is its reciprocal, which you can call the astral worlds, in which time is actually three-dimensional. That's why time sometimes acts pretty strange, and how events cluster together, gravitate toward each other, while in the physical world, it's objects that gravitate toward physical matter that gravitates towards each other. But I'm getting way off track here. Each type of energy in each possible astral body adds to the full spectrum of life experiences and pleasure. Each one gives its own gift. And the most powerful gift is when you permanently activate each astral body and integrate those awarenesses and integrate those intelligences so that it's all a complete soul. And that merging of all of these is the fundamental task of pretty much every religion and every mystery tradition of antiquity, and of anybody that really knew what they were talking about. And I'm here to tell you that from my research and from my personal experience, these things have been known and secretly taught for thousands and thousands of years. It's nothing new. There's people out there that have done it. They know what they're talking about. And you can tell the people who know what they're talking about because they're talking from personal experience. Well, that's it for this advantage. I hope you found it interesting. I kind of rambled off topic a little bit, but we'll let it go at that. Till next time.